Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
You know, how many places are there left now that you read a magazine? Like, I was just thinking about this the other day. Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Like, there are some great pleasures in life that generations going forward will just never know. Like, in my opinion, a cup of coffee and a newspaper in the morning, which was a staple of life, not just in this country, but I think pretty much everywhere in the world for hundreds of years, is basically over. I mean, I sit in that coffee shop on weekend mornings now, and you look around. Everyone used to have a newspaper, and now basically no one has. Oh, no,
I read the stories off the phone now,
or the iPad. I mean, just about everybody does. Yeah. And even magazines, like I loved magazines all through my life. I got tons of them, everything from Sports Illustrated to Rolling Stone to, any number of different things. I still get one magazine. I still have one magazine subscription. I get my Golf Digest once a month.
Of course you do.
And I love it.
Of course you do.
But we were talking about it earlier because Eric Bledsoe tweeted, "I don't want to be here," and he is an out of context or no context tweeter.
Yes, he is.
You used the right phrase.
No context to some of his tweets. These are some of his tweets between January and September. Patience. This one hurt. Wow. Thank God. I'm so tired. No context to him at all. So this was, I don't want to be here. And everybody assumed it meant he doesn't want to be with Phoenix, the team anymore. He said before the season he wanted to be traded. The season just started. They already fired their coach. Nobody thought it was because he didn't want to be at a hair salon.
Right. I mean, everyone, including the Suns themselves. We played you the sound a couple of minutes ago. Ryan McDonough, the general manager, said he told us that the reason he tweeted that is because he was at the hair salon with his girl. This is his words, Ryan McDonough's words, and he didn't want to be there. And Ryan McDonough said flat out, we didn't believe him. So he's gone now. He won't be with us anymore, which means that trading him just got a little bit harder.
Yes, it did.
Because everyone now knows that you have to trade him, whereas previously you just probably wanted to trade him. So I think that's a terrible job by them. And more significantly, I believe him. I believe, based on his history of out-of-context tweets, that's what
tweets.
Exactly, of zero-context tweets, that's what he was tweeting. And I don't think it's worth just throwing him off the team as a result of it.
Again, he has a number, as I read, of no-context tweets, so it's very interesting if that's what he meant. I don't know if I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt if he knew it might cause this because it's right around before the coach got fired. I'm not giving him that much of the benefit of the doubt about that.
So you go to the salon with your wife. How long does it take? How long does it take?
It can now. So I sometimes don't stay there the entire time. I have because it can take a while. It's a great little breakfast place or lunch place that I can go to in between. But I'll sit there. Ricky's a good friend of ours who does her hair. You met him at Jake's wedding, so he's fun to talk to and hang out with. They have cookies and other goodies there at the salon. They do have some magazines. There are places. So I've read magazines there. There are 3 other places I read magazines.
Okay, let me hear.
Dentist.
Right.
There's still magazines available.
Right.
Doctor's office.
Got it.
And where I get my oil change. They have an incredible array of magazines. So I read.
Are they current?
Pretty current, yes. Yeah. So I read them there.
Because frequently at the doctor's office, there's like a Reader's Digest from like 2013.
Yeah. That's the worst. The dentist is pretty good. They have newspaper and magazines. The doctor's office just has old magazines. But I'll say the place I get my oil change, newspaper and a bunch of great magazines. So that's where I go. That's where I still, and we're talking about free magazines, not like at the airport or where you got to buy magazines.
Right.
Just where there are magazines available for you to read.
They still sell tons and tons of magazines at the airport.
Well, I get those because when we've taken trips together, I get my rag magazines.
So there's another place that you read magazines.
Yeah, but I buy them. I'm just talking about where you go and they're available to you to read without me having to purchase them.
Okay, fair enough.
Like a salon.
Let's then go back to Monday Night Football last night. I'm not sure exactly how we got waylaid from that. I take the responsibility for that.
You should.
With Carson Wentz playing as well as he is playing and the Eagles looking as good as they are looking, we had a hashtag Too Far Tuesday this morning saying someone's going to get their dream of an all-Pennsylvania Super Bowl. I would ask you the following question. Which of the 2 teams that play in Pennsylvania, in your opinion, are more likely to make the Super Bowl this year?
Boy, that's a really good question. That is a really good question. I would probably lean toward Philadelphia. I'm trying to think of the biggest competition they would have. Could come from the Cowboys in their own division. Do we think Minnesota can offer that up? The Saints?
The Rams?
The Seahawks?
The Seattle put it together and look better than they've looked, more consistent than they've looked. I mean, they scored a lot of points this week against the Giants, most of it coming late.
They're down 17 or 10-3 in that game for a bit. Yeah. Or 7-3 or whatever it was.
7-3.
But no, I think Philly, because I still
Me too, because I think that the top of the AFC is much stronger than the top of the
New England,
NFC.
right off the bat, New England and Kansas City, even though Pittsburgh beat Kansas City already, I still think at the end, and that's where all that matters at the end, is still really, really good competition.
And I think Houston is going to be a very tough out for anybody. And I think don't count out Oakland yet.
The Bills,
see what they are.
The Bills,
between Buffalo and Miami, who knows what those teams are? Are you buying a little bit of Tennessee? Are you buying a little bit of Saxonville? With Jacksonville, and I mean, if they get, when their quarterback plays well, and again, it tends to happen against really bad teams. They got the running game, they've got a good defense. So there's a lot of good teams in the AFC, and there aren't nearly as many that we see that we like at this point in the NFC. So at this point, I think the Eagles look like the favorite. The Eagles right now look like the favorite, and a lot can change. This is 7 games, and they're going to play 9 more. But as of this moment, the Eagles look like the favorite to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
If you said Schefter reported, right, that they think that the injury to Jason Peters or everything left tackle may not be as bad as it looked. It looked bad. Again, it looked bad. At the O-lineman's nightmare, you never see it coming. You're just pass blocking or run blocking, and all of a sudden somebody rolls up on you, and you're on the ground. And you saw him holding his leg, pointing to it immediately. He was in a lot of pain. They brought the immobilizer out and the cart out. A lot of times you can tell by the way a player reacts of what he thinks it may be. Boy, you saw everybody going around him and just he's so well respected and got carted off. That would be amazing if it's not as serious as it looked and he could actually play again this year. I still don't hold out hope at this point in watching that, but hey, I'm not a doctor.
Schefter tweeted, if there's some bit of encouraging news on Jason Peters, Eagles do not believe he tore his ACL per source. MRI this morning to see. So that's the news that he's getting out of there. We will do fill in the blank in a couple of minutes. Paul Finebaum will join us in a couple of minutes and much more. I want to go through a few more baseball tweets.
Okay.
Will Owens tweets, baseball needs to add teams to the playoffs. Teams with 90 and 100 wins missing the playoffs is crazy. And Will, I would completely agree. If that actually had happened, there was no team that won 90 games this year that didn't make the playoffs. I was just going off
the top of my head. I'm thinking, wait a minute, who's he talking about?
No one was even close.
Okay.
The best team that missed the playoffs this year, if memory serves, it was off the top of my head, was Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee had the most wins. Do you have the standings there? Who had the most wins of any team that didn't make the playoffs? I think it was the Brewers.
Milwaukee had 86 wins.
I think that's it.
Angels had 80.
No one had more. Yeah. I mean, there were only like a very small handful of teams that were over 500.
And Tampa Bay had 80. So, yeah, there were a few teams with 80 and then one with 86. So, yeah, that's not a true statement.
Look, I mean, if there's one thing that we did see this has been a magnificent postseason. I don't know what the television ratings are going to be for the World Series. They may be down a tick compared to last year just because you had two separate things working for you last year. You had the Cubs, which was a story the likes of which you don't have now and you're not likely to have for another century. And you also had an incredibly competitive and compelling series that went 7 games. If this one is an incredibly competitive and compelling series that goes 7 games, they'll have very good television ratings. It won't be what last year's was.
No.
But this year you had the Cubs in the Final Four and you had the Yankees in the Final Four. So the ratings right now are in a good place. So anytime I sit here and I talk about little things, like I'm always constantly trying to tweak and adjust everything. I don't like the narrative. I don't subscribe to the narrative that baseball is in any trouble at all. I don't think they are. But you can always make anything better.
You can, but I'm not always in favor of tweaking things when I see a couple of years of something because a lot of it evens out and goes the other way.
If there's one thing I think baseball needs to be most concerned about going forward, everyone has like their things that keeps them awake at night. The one thing they have to be the most concerned about going forward is the amount of dead time in a sport as our society becomes decreasingly willing to sit through anything.
Yeah.
I mean, anything. We can't watch a football game anymore.
I know.
The red zone has ruined ruined football for us. It is more difficult to watch the standalone games on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays because we're so accustomed to the second it goes to a commercial. Those of us who watch Red Zone, which at this point I feel like is everyone I know, you're just accustomed to what we're going to give me. Here's someone's on the 20, and here's an interception, and here's a kick just got blocked.
I'm with you, but we're talking about the only game without a clock trying to clock some things.
No, but that is its beauty. No, that should not change. You can't take the baseball out of baseball
But you're
anymore.
trying to clock some things. If their biggest thing is the time in between plays, you want to speed that up, so you're trying to clock something.
That's not the part of not having a clock that is the beauty of baseball. The beauty of baseball not having a clock is that time is never going to run out. You got to get 27
You're missing
outs,
my point. I'm saying in a game where there's no clock for anything, you are trying to clock something.
Right.
Which is a change for that sport.
Right. And
they're trying to do it with the pitches,
correct.
with the play, with the pitch clock. Again, I was in the Dunkin' Donuts Stadium here in a minor league, and they got a clock running.
Right.
And sometimes they adhere to it, sometimes they don't.
Right. But I think everyone, if you were to have a little bit more of that and enforce staying in the batter's box and all that kind of stuff a little more than they used to, I think everyone will get used to that really fast. All the players who are complaining about that will get used to it.
Players do adapt
really fast. So I don't think that would be the end of the world. And then I do believe that the seemingly never-ending flow of relief pitchers is a small problem for baseball. Because while it is incredibly compelling in the postseason, remarkable to watch the Yankees bringing all these guys out of the pen and these other teams that do, Kansas City won a World Series 2 years ago by doing that. On a Tuesday night in August, it's kind of tough to sit through.
I agree.
It just is.
I know. I agree with that. But to tell that manager that, is trying to win.
That's why you got to change for this. Listen.
Oh yeah, I know we're not.
Rules. That's why I am totally in favor of changing all of the. You know this. I was yelling and screaming about this just last week. Stop incentivizing losing. We talked to Adam Silver last week about this and the changes they're making in the interest of trying to eliminate tanking. There was just an article I was reading this morning. Someone remind me who was talking about it. It was an executive who was saying that in Golden State, they tanked to get Klay Thompson, who's now an executive somewhere else. I forget where it was. And he openly acknowledged that they made moves. They sat Steph Curry for the rest of a season, and they made a trade for a guy they knew wouldn't play for them the rest of the year. It turned out to be Andrew Bogut, who wound up being a contributor for them as time went forward. But they did it in order to solidify their draft position because they needed to be in the top 7 because they had a top 7 protected draft pick or something like that. The point of the story is that they're acknowledging that they were purposely losing. That's the first thing I would change. If you made me the president of the world and I could change everything in sports, the first thing I would change is I would make every rule change I could that meant that losing would never be better than winning.
Yeah.
There would never be a circumstance in which losing is better than winning. We have less of that in baseball than anywhere else.
Yeah,
that's a non-issue in baseball.
And basketball, I believe they think they tried, but I don't think they accomplished it at all by giving the same percentage of the first, second, and third pick. I actually think it works in reverse, in my opinion, as far as tanking. But, they're let's see if they come up with something even better down the road. We'll have to wait and see.
And then Christopher tweets, Major League Baseball's pace of play is much improved, but rules and pace need to be kept up in postseason with national stage. Again, that's one I actually disagree with.
Completely disagree with that.
Some might say this is when your sport is on its biggest stage. You want it to be at its best. I think it is. I think that the gripping drama of all of those decisions, which have always been the beauty of the sport, are magnificent with everything in the world riding on every one of them. And for a lot of casual fans may feel tedious over the course of 162 games.
I get that, but I just think of the players and the team in that game 37, which could be the one that gets them over the hump, quite honestly, when you get to 162. But, again, we'll see. I understand they want to improve the rate of play, so I don't know the answer to it. Little changes. It's not going to be big changes. It's going to be little changes. That could be one. I could easily see that being one down the road is pitchers in the same inning. How many allow?
Limit a number of within an inning pitching changes.
Because what you want to do is you want to make a change that's subtle that no one maybe really notices,
Right. No, if you just changed that and you didn't tell the world you had changed it.
Didn't tell anybody.
I mean, people would notice because the hardcore fans of the team would be like, get him out of there.
Yeah,
Why
they would.
Why
are you not? And then you would. But we're not talking about hardcore fans here.
Right. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So you have no problem with 2.5 minutes left in a blowout game with Jordan Bell of the Warriors off a defensive play. He actually blocks a shot and he runs out in transition. 2.5 minutes last night, throwing the ball up off the backboard and slam dunking it in a blowout game.
Pro game, man. Deal with it.
After it was over, Steve Kerr apologized to Rick Carlisle.
And he had no need to apologize. And by the way, Carlisle wanted nothing to do with it, walked right by him. Get over it. You just got blown out tough. Who cares if you slammed? That's what you're worrying about? That's what always amazes me. You got blown out by 25, or it was 25. I don't know what the final score ended up. But you're losing by 25 with 2 minutes to go. And that's what you're going to complain about? That's going to be an issue? That's what you're going to be salty about? That you don't want to, hear? A, I wouldn't apologize. But B, acting salty like you're not going to hear the apology. Seriously? That's the least. You get a chance to dunk. Wait a minute. Are we entertaining fans or not?
We are
supposed to entertain fans? You think? What's more entertaining? A layup, dribbling it out, and not scoring at all because you're up 25, or an off the backboard slam?
Well,
what do? We want to entertain them or not? Well, it's a great chance to entertain them. Who's it hurting? It's hurting. Let me tell you who it's hurting. Nobody. Get over it. Get over it. No apology necessary. No apology needed. Slam it away, my friend.
Code of conduct. Let me ask you a question. In an NFL game, if you could just run out the clock and win the game by taking a couple of knees and you throw a touchdown pass, you wouldn't have a problem with that? Let's say a team gets a first down. They're winning by whatever it is, and they get a first down now, and they could just take 3 knees and the clock is going to run out and they're going to win.
Way different than a slam. For a guy that makes a defensive play who plays 7 minutes a game, he has the ball tapped to him in an open lane to the basket. What should he have done? Not scored, just laid it in. If you want to compare a 25-point game with 2 minutes to go and a team throwing a bomb to a dunk off the glass, I'm going to disagree with you and say there's no comparison to one play like that as opposed to a bomb in a football game, to a long pass in a football game.
That's probably fair. As I'm watching the highlight more and more, I just saw this on Twitter last night. I wasn't watching the game when it happened. It was very late last night. But I'm seeing the expression on Kevin Durant's face.
Yeah.
And Durant, again, the teammate of the guy doing the dunking, and Jordan Bell. I think if I'm reading Durant's expression right, I think he's saying, man, he shouldn't have done that. Like that was not cool. Like baseball has a bunch of they're typing up he's impressed. I don't think so. You think Kevin Durant is impressed by a guy throwing the ball to himself off the backboard? You think it's the first time he's ever seen that?
I don't know.
He's so impressed.
I don't think Jordan Bell was doing it to impress Kevin Durant.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think going up he was doing it because he could. He was doing it because he had the open lane to do it.
Yeah.
Thought we were entertaining. Are we not entertaining? Are you not entertained?
I was entertained.
Okay, I was entertained. I would much rather see that than a layup or dribble it back out, and not score. So if this is what we're going to complain about, seriously, you got more issues. You're getting blown out by 25. Worry more about that than, did you see what he did with 2 minutes ago? Wah.
Let's hear from you. If you'd like to let us know, at us on this one. I'd like to hear if anyone had a problem with it. Mike, let's fill in the blank quickly here, Golic. It's brought to you by Mahindra Tractors and Utility Vehicles. Mahindra USA, the world's #1 selling tractor. Fill in the blank. Here we go. Dwayne Wade opting for a bench role in Cleveland right now is blank.
Selfless? Would you do that? Does he feel he can be better for the team or he can score more points? Because he's averaging, 5 points now as a starter, and if he's coming off the bench, he thinks leading that and playing more, maybe he could, if he plays or would lead that, would be able to score more points. Do we think it was completely for the betterment of the team?
The word I was going to use was inevitable. It just sort of felt like that was where this thing is going to wind up anyway, so why not do it now and get comfortable in the role? Here's what I'll be curious about. When we get to late April and May and June, I don't care who's playing at the beginning of the game. Will Dwayne Wade be playing at the end?
Right, exactly.
Will he be on the floor when they're in the last few possessions of close games? I forget even the last 6 minutes of close games. Is he on the floor?
Well, with the group they have? We got to see the season, how it plays out.
But
I don't know.
That's the interesting one.
I'm with you, yeah.
Whether he started the game or not. Because that's where I think he'll want to be on the floor. I think coming off the bench, while I get the status of it, I think that if he's on the floor late in these close games, that will be a very interesting thing. Next, of the following teams, Cowboys, Falcons, Raiders, and Jets, the most surprising 3-win team in the NFL is blank.
The Jets. If you'd have told me 7 games in, they'd have 3 wins already. And I didn't think they'd go 0-16. I thought maybe they'd win 3 games for the year, 2, 3, 4 games for the year, but 3 games at this point. I would say that would be the most surprising.
I'm pretty surprised the Falcons only have 3 wins. Now, if you've watched them play, you realize they could easily have only had 1.
Yep.
But I'll agree with you. Did I think the Jets would win 3 games the whole year? Maybe not. But if you had said before the season started, one of these teams is going to have 3 wins at this moment in the year, I think I would have disputed Atlanta more than I would have disputed any of the others. Next, the team outside of Alabama that you would bet an amount of money that mattered to you on to make the college football playoff is blank.
It's a great question before the Ohio State-Penn State matchup.
Outside of Alabama.
I may still lean to Clemson. There's even though could the ACC be left out? I don't think they lose again. I think they win the ACC championship. Then it's a matter of how many one-loss teams are there that they're battling against for that as a conference champ. And then throw Notre Dame in there, not in a conference, but could finish up 11-1. And then you start comparing schedules, and Notre Dame's schedule is very difficult. But if you tell me to give you a team, I'd probably say Clemson.
Me too. I think they're the best of the ones that haven't gotten that have one loss, and I think that they will wind up getting in. Next, Eric Bledsoe's explanation for his quote "I don't want to be here" tweet was
awesome. Listen, if he was telling the truth, then what a great one. And if he was lying, at least he didn't say I was hacked. At least he came. If he was lying, boy, what a great one to come up with. What a great one. Did you mean you didn't want to be with us? No, I was at a salon, and I didn't want to be there anymore.
Candidly, my answer to that question, or my filling in the blank, would be honest. I believe it's true. I do believe it's true. He has ample opportunity to say he doesn't want to be in Phoenix anywhere, anytime, any place. He didn't need to do it cryptically like that. Yeah. I believe he was at the salon reading some old magazine. They probably had a magazine sitting there from like 2014. It's got the little part where someone's address was originally on it, ripped off in that little corner. Someone's already done the crossword puzzle in it. It's brutal sitting there with that magazine. And he just, you know what? I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here.
Just decided to tweet that.
And he is a no context tweeter.
They threw him off the team as a result of it.
Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT, home, safe home.
Every tweet that has been handed to me by Travis over there agrees with you on the Jordan Bell dunk. So that suggests to me that either no one agreed with me or he's just trying to take your side in this thing. I'm not sure which way the Bickler is going on this, but he hands me a sheet of 5 tweets. Every single one of them are on that side. J.C. Pacheco, no problem with the dunk. If you don't like it, stop them from doing it. Nick, my problem was he didn't tomahawk it. Money Mike, Golic is right. They're losing by 25 and they're crying about losing by 27. Dan, 100% agree with Golic. Entertain me. At Take That tweets, Golic is so right. Rick Carlisle is a baby. So every single tweet that was handed to me on this piece of paper agrees with
I'm
you.
just amazed you're getting blown out, and that's what fans or players or coach or somebody, and I don't know what the player said. I'm not
code of conduct.
I'm not going to say the players for Dallas sat there and complained. I didn't hear what they said. I'm saying if anybody did complain about it, you got a lot more to worry about than if the guy wants to off the backboard slam it and entertain a few people and get something out of his 7 minutes on the court that he gets. So I have no problem with it.
Let's talk some college football now. We all know Paul Finebaum from the SEC Network, the Paul Finebaum Show. You hear him every afternoon, coast to coast here on ESPN Radio, and he joins us once a week or anytime we can grab him. Good morning, Paul Finebaum. How are you today, sir?
Good morning, everybody.
We had a very interesting weekend in college football, and unfortunately, for me as a fan, it was disappointing. I was really looking forward with the clicker to the 2 games, the big primetime games on Saturday night, which both turned into one-sided blowouts. So Penn State and Notre Dame with those huge wins. So give us a little perspective from where you sit on the performances of those two teams and what you think those two one-sided wins mean to the big picture of college football where we sit right now.
Yeah, I think, Greeny, in relation to Penn State, it was an incredible win, and I think it obviously finished off Michigan and Jim Harbaugh for this season, but it sets up what's obvious this week, maybe the biggest game of the year in college football. And the winner of this game Saturday afternoon in Columbus really has an inside track to get a spot in the playoff. Now, I know Penn State fans are going to say, what if we lose? Well, I think it is bad news if Penn State loses, as well as everything has gone. Conversely, I think if Penn State wins and Barkley has a really big game, he can really put a grip or his arms around the Heisman Trophy. I think he has been that dominant and that impressive.
Or Josh Adams from Notre Dame. I'm starting to jump on his bandwagon, Paul. He's been having a monster year. The Notre Dame beats USC. Let me ask it in this way. People think I'm just going to ask about Notre Dame all the time.
I'm not talking about Notre Dame.
Yeah, because you're forced to have to say they're for real, aren't you? Go ahead, just admit it.
Can I ask for what I know everyone wants to be on camera, but could I indulge you guys to, because I feel like I owe Golic a man-to-man conversation, but I need to go off camera here for about 10 seconds if you could oblige. Okay.
Yeah, we'll vamp.
I'll be right back.
This is pretty good. I'm
I
very
do
curious
like
to
this
see
a
what
lot.
it is he does.
I am as well.
Leave the shot up. I mean, let's see. I'll do the play-by-play for radio.
Off here
well, he's going off. He's obviously going to get something.
Yes,
I want
he
to
is.
see the prop. Let's see him when he returns.
All right.
Oh! Paul Finebaum is wearing a Notre Dame helmet.
Yes.
For those of you listening on
That's
ESPN
what I'm
Radio.
talking about. Go ahead.
Listen,
regale us with stories of Notre Dame.
You know, when you're wrong, okay? And, you know, I try to be true, and it's pretty obvious I could not have been more wrong about Brian Kelly and Notre Dame. So I feel like in deference to one of my favorite Notre Dame families, the Golics, I've gotten to know you, I've gotten to know your son, I've heard from your mom, which isn't a pleasant experience sometimes when you're being attacked by her. I just feel like I'm all in. I know the Notre Dame family doesn't want any part of me, but I'm here to offer whatever condolences to myself, and I'm asking for absolution. Is that possible?
Yes, it is. Paul, we love you. Deep down, we really do love you. And along the lines of Notre Dame and Ohio State and Clemson and Oklahoma and any other one-loss team you want to put in there, which one-loss team do you think has the best shot going forward?
Well, I heard what you said a minute ago. I think Clemson is really in good shape. I mean, if they run the table, I'm not sure how they can be denied. But I will say this, Mike, the most interesting scenario, I do think, is what happens if Georgia loses an epic game to Alabama in the SEC championship game and Notre Dame runs through, which I think will be difficult but possible. Then do you choose Notre Dame over Georgia, which may have played a better schedule overall, except one thing about Georgia, and it's really difficult to make sense wearing a football helmet for the first time in my life, winning, they would have a win at Auburn and obviously a very quality loss to Alabama at the end.
Paul, while I'm asking this question, if you want to take the helmet off, you can take the helmet off.
I don't know how to take it off, so I'm leaving it on.
Let me throw another team in there, and they would have to beat my Notre Dame team to ask this question. A team that's sitting at number 14 right now that in 2 weeks could be in a lot different position. North Carolina State. They play Notre Dame this week and Clemson next week. If they were to win those two games, I guess let me ask you this: do you think they're capable of that? And then we put them right in this conversation?
Yeah, no, I think you have to because they lost early. They lost in the first game of the year.
Right.
It's not a great loss unless South Carolina gets on a roll and starts knocking teams off, and they will play Florida and they will have Clemson, which would be interesting. But I think they would have a big hill to climb, and it also would depend on who they get in the ACC championship game.
Mike and Mike, Paul Finebaum is with us again. For those of you listening on radio, you're missing a treat here. He's wearing a Notre Dame helmet. He's got the grill in the front. I mean, everything about it is just
Go, I don't know how you wear this thing for 4 hours. I'm already nauseous after 3 minutes.
We should have gotten them. Remember the old face masks that the punters would wear that had the one bar across the front? I think somehow I think that would have worked out well. But this is a delight. Let me ask you this. Everyone keeps talking about what if Georgia loses a close game to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and I get why everyone would ask that.
Right.
What if Alabama loses a close game to Georgia in the SEC championship? They've been in all three of these things. Now, they don't have the kind of great win on their schedule that everyone get excited about, but they have the pedigree. If they lost a close game, would they get left out of this thing?
I don't think so, although, listen, I know where the conversation is going, and suddenly, Greeny, that win against Florida State is garbage. That was the biggest preseason game we've ever had, a 1-3 matchup, but that's what happens. People forget. I like to look at it, what was that team like on the day you played them? And Florida State was a great team. Many people had Florida State winning it all, but because they've literally gone in the tank and it's unexplainable, I think it hurts Alabama. Alabama really would need an Auburn team maybe to only have 2 losses when they beat them. But I think Alabama, because of the dominance, I mean they're not beating teams, they're destroying teams. I think the committee would have to look at that.
One of the conversations that always comes up, because the dude is just, he's a headliner. That's Jim Harbaugh. Coaching Michigan, a lot of people saying, when's he going to end up back in the NFL now? What does he need to do at Michigan to pick up that program? He's already kind of turned it around, and you're looking for the next step. 2 losses. They end the season against Wisconsin and then Ohio State. What do you make of this team and Jim Harbaugh?
Well, I think the heat is going to be on, and I don't mean for his job. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is Jim Harbaugh. He has changed the dynamics of this program, but I maintain that the inner Jim Harbaugh is going to win out, and I think he's going to become extremely frustrated if he loses to Ohio State again, and then if he comes back next year and has similar results. At some point, he has to break through, and the fact that he's playing, that Michigan is playing Rutgers Saturday, and they are both tied for 4th place in the division, that's not what Michigan thought they were getting. That's not what they're paying for. And at some point, I think Jim Harbaugh either turns this around or he says, hey, the Colts, the Bears, anyone in the NFL, do you want me? I'm ready to come back.
All right, we'll see if that winds up happening one way or another. I've just lost complete control of the proceedings because Golic has now put on a Notre Dame helmet. So I'm just sitting here. Those of you watching this split screen, someone please get a screenshot of that for me. That'd make a great screensaver. You got Golic on the left and Finebaum on the right, both wearing Notre Dame helmets.
Oh, we are teammates. How about that?
I have never been more proud to be a Notre Dame supporter in my life.
Right now, what would be great right now, if we were actually in the same room, we could both get in stances and come out and hit one another.
Well, you might have to help me with a few instructions, but I'm game.
Paul Finebaum, and remember, weekdays a special TV-only hour, 2 o'clock Eastern every afternoon on ESPN2, then coast to coast starting at 3 on the SEC Network and Sirius XM Channel 81. Paul, well done. Thank you so much.
Paul.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.
What a good sport.
Paul Finebaum with us, brought to you by Goodyear. Tires as hardworking as college football's most blimp-worthy athletes. Goodyear, official sponsor of the college football playoff. You know what I remember?
What's that?
So there's Finebaum, who was a Notre Dame basher wearing the helmet. Remember the year that they went to the championship game? Yeah. Remember Rick Riley had to polish the helmets?
Oh, yeah, he did.
Remember that? He went and polished all the helmets.
That's exactly right. Deservedly so.
They inspire a lot of hate, but everyone, it's all in good fun.
All in good fun.
So many different topics that we've managed to work our way into this morning, and so there's a ton of them that are flying in, and the reaction in the Twitter.
I have reaction from my wife, who has spent many a day in a cell all.
Okay.
And she said, no way she believes Bledsoe. If it's too easy for him to go do something else and come back if he didn't want to be there. There's nothing, chaining you there. Even if you go there, you can say, I'm going to go out for a little bit and I'll come back. I've done that. That's what I've done. You can go find something else if you do to do or want. So she said she doesn't believe it at all.
Or in the 5 seconds that you're sitting there, which is sort of the social media universe in which we live,
true.
You could just tweet, I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here.
And then you could go do something. Again, I don't know Eric Bledsoe from a hole in the wall. No. But when you see all of those, you're the one who convinced me that he was being honest, because you pointed out that he is someone who constantly tweets things with no context whatsoever.
Right.
It feels odd that all of a sudden he would have tweeted out of nowhere. He doesn't do any tweeting of any significance.
No, he doesn't.
His whole timeline.
And again,
he never makes any point that matters to anyone.
For those that haven't heard, I read through this. I have 7 tweets of his from January to September with no context at all. These are the 7 different tweets. Patience. I need it with prayer hands. This one hurt. Only going to make me stronger. Wow. Thank God I'm so tired. all of them, no hashtag anything, no context, no nothing. You have no idea.
Right.
You know what
so
he's
all
talking
of a
about.
sudden, he's demanding a trade this way. He's telling the world he wants out of Phoenix. He's already told them he wants to be traded.
He did.
Everyone kind of knows he's a guy who's going to get moved at some point here. And in my opinion, again, I think the Suns have cut off their noses to spite their face. The general manager, for those of you just joining us, said, well, I don't believe the story that he was in a salon and didn't want to be there. We think he was telling the world he wants out of Phoenix, so he's not going to be with us anymore.
Exactly. So we can get a bag of balls for him.
Yeah, so now training him just became that much more complicated. Now, there's a lot of teams that are going to want him. He's a good player.
Yes.
And it probably, in the big picture, won't make a big difference, but I don't know. It just feels like a weird thing for him today to have woken up, or that day, to have woken up and decided, you know what? I'm going to tweet, I want out of Phoenix in this cryptic, strange way.
If he really wasn't if he was lying about it, I mean, it's so much better than saying I got hacked. So much better than saying that.
Yeah.
So.
The coach was fired an hour after he tweeted that, by the way. Now, whether he had heard word from the inside that the coach had been fired or was going to be fired, that was why I initially assumed he did it. But when you did your research and you found all of these completely meaningless tweets that he likes to throw out there, all of a sudden sitting in a salon not wanting to be there kind of sounded more realistic to me.
And by the way, my research consisted mostly of watching the replay of Scott Van Pelt, his Sports Center with Katie Nolan on it, and Katie Nolan had a bunch of
She went back and did his.
She said some of them. I added a few more.
Oh, okay. But she had his
She said that some of his are no context tweets, and I so I had Bickler looking. We got more, so I don't want to pat myself on the back too much.
Fair enough, but it was a good job of investigative journalism by your part. Either way, Mike and Mike, time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Here's David tweeting to us about the idea of pace of game in baseball, or pace of play in baseball. Reduce time by making the relief pitchers finish warm-ups in the bullpen. What sport allows on-field warm-ups, come in and start pitching? There's always been a certain number of pitches that they allow the guy, and I guess he's got to get comfortable on that mound in that scenario.
Right.
I don't think they're going to change that, because I think these arms are so incredibly valuable, and the motion that they're making is so incredibly violent and unnatural to begin with. I think it would be a player safety issue. I would like them to bring back the bullpen cars.
Oh, yeah, I think I completely agree.
I'm not sure why we stopped that.
I agree, because, man, you could dial those things up. And because in football, to do that, a warm-up, depending on the position, like for a quarterback or a center, something like if that person goes down, but not bad enough to where they're laying there and want to come off the field, the coach usually like, stay down. Because if it's a center, then the quarterback can come over and practice with the next center, some snaps or whatever.
Right.
And if it's a quarterback, then the quarterback on the sideline can throw a few times while the guy is, sitting there acting more hurt than maybe he really is, to try and get the warm-up in.
By the way, along the lines of a Too Far Tuesday, how about this one from Nathan? Bringing up a team that maybe none of us are thinking about. He tweets, Michigan State will represent the East in the Big Ten championship
How about
game.
them?
Hashtag Too Far Tuesday. They had such a bad year last year that we sort of just completely forgot about them. There was a point last year after they obliterated Notre Dame that we were talking about national championship, and they were in the CFP the year before.
Yes, they were.
Now, all of a sudden, they have the win over Michigan. Now, after this past weekend, does that look as big as now or not? I don't know. They don't look as good as everybody else, but let's see.
No, they don't. They're sitting there at 6-1. Their one loss is in Notre Dame. They got shellacked.
Right.
They gave up 21
haven't
points
lost
off
in the
turnovers. No, they have not. It would be very interesting. Big Ten's getting pretty interesting.
The Big Ten,
yeah.
I think for the second straight year, I think the Big Ten at the top is the best conference in college football. I really do. Go ahead and argue against me on that. We'll do it next, plus Baseball World Series preview, plus Louis Riddick in the next hour.